Time for In the Spirit of Play here on WBCR LP 97.7 FM Great Barrington, Berkshire Community Radio, streaming on the World Wide Web at www.berkshireradio.org. I am so excited about my show today. My guest today here for the entire show, 2 hours of pure fun. I have got the very respected journalist, writer, author, I don't know, musician, raconteur. Oh, I love that word, raconteur.
That was Bernstein's.
Raconteur.
Yes.
James Campion, all the way from New Jersey.
Oh, yes. It's very exciting. I'm very excited to be here. First time ever in Great Barrington. It's beautiful here.
Have you been to the Berkshires ever?
Probably. I don't remember. So I had a good time, apparently. No, I maybe. Yeah. But it's beautiful. It's really beautiful. I live sort of on a mountain range as well in New Jersey. People think of New Jersey, they think of like
the burbs,
Newark,
but no, you're not. You're
Sopranos. I live like where the bear run free and I have wild turkey knocking on my door.
Yeah, like here, just like here.
Yes, it's beautiful here.
Fox and coyote.
Absolutely, they're all there. Geese pooping all over my lawn.
I'm so happy you're here.
Yeah.
Let's go like to the beginning here. You have how many books? 5, 6?
5. Yeah,
5.
5. The novel is the one that came out last year.
Okay.
Why?
Why the letter Y, not the word.
The symbol.
The symbol
yes,
Y.
The backwards Y. And prior to that, all my books were nonfiction. So this was my first foray into fiction.
And have you written nonfiction short stories or anything like that? Or you tend to stick with the facts?
Yeah, well, I was younger. Well, I often say, and this is true of a lot of my earlier books, the truth is always more bizarre than anything else. I find
God,
I love
meeting.
Yes, yeah. I love meeting people and writing their stories, understanding what makes them tick, rather than making them up. Although I know that that's what novelists do. I'm not saying that nothing that you do, and a lot of the stuff that's in my novel Y is stuff that happened to me, but I fictionalized it.
Yeah.
No author will tell you, I don't care who it is, Hemingway, Dickens, will ever take something completely out of whole cloth. I'm sure somewhere Tolkien had met somebody that probably reminded him of something that he put in those books. Somebody reminded him of a Hobbit. But for most of my work, it's always been taking real personalities and trying to figure out what makes them tick and what kind of subculture they create.
Yeah.
That's always been a real, inspiration for me.
I know you were a sports writer for a while,
yes,
right? And sort of the across-the-board journalist dealing with arts, dealing with politics, all of it?
All of it.
All of it.
I wrote, I cut,
newspapers, magazines, online things.
Yes, right? I started out writing obits like everybody else and covering local Little League openings, parades. And since you read the book, that a lot of the angst, a lot of the experience that I had, a lot of the struggles that every reporter goes through, and most of my life I've been a freelancer, so I write for different magazines and newspapers.
Right.
I did work for the Trentonian for a short time, the Journal News.
Is that Trenton?
Trenton, yeah. That's where I kind of went down to school there, so that whole Philly, Trenton, Southern Jersey thing. Worked in New York as a freelancer in New York City, and I wanted to kind of depict that world.
What was amazing to me, never having read written a novel, but having read a few in my life, is that you were the main character and you were you. You weren't James Campion called Fred or Steve or something else. You were you. Yeah. And that in itself, to me, was really entertaining.
Oh, thank you.
Because I kept reading it.
That's one word for it. The other word is narcissism.
Well, that too. But I kept reading it because I've met you a couple of times, and I kept reading it going, now, I wonder how much of this is really him or how much of it is fictionalized. And the more I kept reading, the more I kept thinking, like, wait a minute, he's like telling me what's going on in his brain. He's got like this, like, journalist myopia here that he's like writing about over, and it's like, but it's you. And so, like, what's that line of how much of it is you and how much of it is this character that has your name?
It's all of it. It's all of it. Yeah. Really? Well, I'm serious because, it's funny. I just did a book signing a couple weeks ago, and people were noticing, and that's why I did it. If you get the book, my name's not on it. There's nothing else on it but
I was going to say just the symbol, and it's not even on the side panel.
Yeah, nothing. Yeah. So I wanted to go very mysterious that way. Plus, it was that way originally, and the book took about 10 years to get published. I wrote it in 2002, 2003, and then I did a rewrite in 2006. And a couple of times, other publishers would say, "You got to get yourself out of there." Like when Kerouac wrote On the Road, he had his name in there until like the last minute. Yeah. So that's a good point. I mean, usually especially if it's written in the first person, the author takes the name out of there. So there's some mystery. Right. Like I said, I threw it in there because I first started writing these as part of a column I write called Reality Check for the Aquarian Weekly, which I write for weekly in New Jersey.
A weekly column in the Aquarian Weekly.
And it deals with pop culture, as you said, politics and music, and people got to know me. So I knew a lot of people that are in this book. Very interesting underground artistes from New York City, New Jersey area. And I wanted to give them plugs, but I really couldn't put them in there because a lot of them didn't become famous. Some of them did. But I wanted to remind them that it was me that went through these things with them. So even though I'm the author, I didn't want my name to be on the book. Is this making any sense to you? But when I put myself in
it... it makes sense when you say you can't judge a book by its cover.
Yes, it does.
If your name's not on it.
It isn't.
Oh, so God, that guy James Campion again?
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Well, as you know, you read the book. There is an interesting, and that's, again, one word for it. A lot of people hate the ending. A lot of people love it. But there's this sort of duality in it of where the author ends and where the writing starts and vice versa. So when you're writing and you put yourself, whether it's your name or not, there's a point where you have this tontine, this deal with the reader that you're giving them fantasy, they're buying into it, and it's a play. It's literally a play between, it's a deal that you make as an artist. So you're never totally out of it, but you're in it. And I always found it fascinating that writers, now I know songwriters, they put their names on the records, and even though they sing they're singing through characters.
Sure.
There was always that joke about Randy Newman who wrote Short People.
Right.
And he said, well, that's not me, it's a character. But your
He
name
is
on
short!
And he's short. But my point is that it's they used to call that the, what was the word for it? It's like the, it's a narrator, but someone that you can't really trust. And so when a writer writes, they use the characters. But when you see, and that's what they do in film as well, but when a painter paints, it's their name on it, so it's their thoughts. And you mentioned about stuff that's going on inside my head. I tried to write a book like that, where it's not just action, it's subconscious.
Yeah.
Which a lot of my favorite books have.
Yeah.
You know, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. And I actually based this book on Lewis Carroll's work.
Oh,
it was a homage to Alice in Wonderland, who actually does appear in the book, Alice.
Yes, Alice is in there.
Yeah.
So you have some very bizarre characters, and most of them are based on people you know? Is that what you were saying?
Yes, there's not one character in this book that I completely made out of whole cloth. There's people that I've met that either did something like that. Right. There's a car chase in this book, and that absolutely happened to me. That every word of it. And I remember the reason why is I jotted it down. I said, I got to put this in a book someday. Wow. And there was a point in this book where I needed a car chase. So I literally put that in there. So if you buy the book and read the book, that absolutely happened to me.
Wow.
Almost verbatim, because I wrote down what happened. This was early 90s. I wrote it down and I had it in a notebook, in a journal. And I don't really keep journals. I tell all young writers to do it. I should do it. But when something really cool happens, like this radio show, then I'll write it down.
Yeah.
Like being on the show with you.
Like this is like one of the coolest experiences you've ever had in your life.
Ever.
Now, you said you used to do radio. You told me that before.
Did.
Where did you do radio?
In Westchester.
Okay.
Also in New Jersey. I went to, like I said, I went to school down by
a music
Jersey.
show?
I did. I worked for WMGQ in New Brunswick, New Jersey in the early 80s.
You have a good voice for radio.
Thank you.
You do.
It's a little whiny.
Yeah. I got the nasal New York thing going on too here.
Excuse me. And I played middle of the road music. Then I went to some other Imagination Radio in Washington Crossings, Pennsylvania in the early 80s. Then I got into doing sports reporting. So, and then I worked for WFAS Radio in the 90s. Actually, my co-host for that show is running for governor of New York, Rob Astorino. He's running against Cuomo.
Wow.
Great guy.
Wow.
He's the county executive of Westchester now, which is like the second or third largest, as far as money, counties in all of the United States. And he's
in the whole country.
In the whole country. He's one of the nicest people I've ever met, and he made me godfather of his first kid. And so we did a radio show in the 90s there, and we did a lot of the local game. We did local high school. So I've done everything. pretty much done anything in the media. Yeah.
This is way cool fun. Before we go any further,
Yes.
just so I don't forget, and we can do it a few times throughout the couple of hours that we're on, do you want to give out contact info for you, or how people can, your blog or your
Thank
website or Facebook or whatever you want to, your personal cell phone number, whatever you want to give out?
My PR. So anyway, you can reach jamescampion.com. Just Google me. My website will come up with a bunch of other things.
Campion.
CAM. Thank you very much.
Are you related to anybody famous who's a Campion?
No, Jane Campion. No.
Okay.
No, that's the only other Campion I've known that's fake. There's another gentleman in England. Oh. I know that there was an English show called Campion. Someone recently told me. That's the title of the show. I think it was a
radio
detective show? No, a TV show.
A TV show.
Yeah, and BBC London.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I knew that when I went to London. I was like, holy crap. But yeah, I think the only Campion I know besides Jane Campion. Yes, jamescampion.com, Campion. All my contacts are there. You can get to my Facebook page on that. It's a regular Facebook page, so you don't have to be, in Facebook. It's like one of those things you could like.
You could like it.
Pepsi. Yeah. And you can find my books on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. They're also, all my books are available in ebook. So if you have a Nook or you have a, what's the other thing? Kindle.
Kindles.
Yeah.
Do you have one of those?
iTunes. I do not.
I haven't gotten that
I'm an old
electronic. I like the feel of turning a page.
And the smell of a good new book, or even a used book.
That musty thing. Yeah.
I passed like 3 antique bookstores on the way over here, and I got to stop on the way out of here.
Oh yeah, there's lots of them around here.
I can't. I'm definitely old fashioned that way in every way. Now I see the advantage because I have an iPod, so with music, and I still collect vinyl. I have hundreds of albums.
Okay.
Listen, I have a beautiful turntable. My wife got me, best birthday present ever. Nice sound system in my house. I would prefer if I'm in my home to listen to vinyl.
Right.
But there's nothing better than the iPod to have 10,000 songs, to have every Rolling Stones song at my fingertips. Anytime I want to hear it is a real rush. However, I understand the beauty of that. If I wanted to have every Hunter Thompson novel at my fingertips, I could have it. But for some reason, the physical holding of the book, the putting the bookmark in it,
and in the tactile, I like feeling. I'm turning the next page, and I'm turning the next page, like that thing of
it's visceral.
Yeah,
and anybody who's been in a room or even in a building where I'm typing will know I'm still an old typewriter head.
You pound on the keys?
I pound, and I've killed so many keyboards. In fact, a guy who handles my website came over last couple months ago, and he dropped off literally an old IBM keyboard.
Selectric?
Yeah, like a Selectric keyboard that I can connect so I can feel like I'm typing. I'm a pounder, yeah.
I had a Royal.
I
had a Royal
I always
typewriter.
Mine was, I wrote my first book, Deep Tank Jersey, in 1995, on my first published book, on a brother. Word
processor?
Thank you. I couldn't even think of it
Before
anymore.
we had computers, we had word processors.
We did. They had the screen, though.
Yeah.
And this is how it literally printed out. And it's a book. So every page is... That's one line. It took me like 6 months to print this book out. Send it to the publisher. That's a true story. True story of harrowing freelance writing.
Do you know anybody who still writes on typewriters? There was a theater performance a couple of years ago upstairs at Mixed Company Theater that was all about typewriters, and they had all this old typewriters, and they had a whole display of them, and like people still actually use them?
Yes, well, I only know one person, the great Roger Kahn. I don't know if anybody knows who Roger Kahn is. He was a mentor of mine. I did research for him in the early 90s for some books. He wrote The Boys of Summer. He coined The Boys of Summer. He was the beat writer for the old New York Herald, which is gone now, and he covered the Dodgers in the 50s. And
the Brooklyn Dodgers.
The Brooklyn Dodgers, thank you.
My father was a Brooklyn Dodger fan.
Are you from Brooklyn or you said New York City?
Queens.
Bronx.
Manhattan when I was really little. Washington Heights when I was really little, but Bayside, Queens.
Washington Heights is close to the Bronx?
It is.
And he wrote on and I'm assuming he still does, and I know that Tom Wolfe does, because I just saw a recent interview with him, and I know that Woody Allen writes on it, because I just saw a documentary about him, and he writes
Woody Allen writes on a typewriter?
Yes, the same one he had when he was 15. Underwood.
Oh my
God. A black
God.
Underwood, and there's like 2 keys missing.
I mean, he can afford a real
doesn't matter.
computer.
It's and I understand. You know what it is?
It's the thing about the editing, right? We cut and paste, and you lose everything.
You know it is superstition. It's superstition.
Like lucky underwear.
If you find something, if you're Woody Allen and every screenplay is brilliant, and even his mediocre movies, there's something magnificent in every screenplay. He's one of my great heroes, especially fiction-wise. Although Y is nothing like that, but. I would do it too. In other words, if I found a place that I felt comfortable in creating, I felt like the muse went there.
Mm-hmm.
Everything happened there. I wouldn't break it. It's like a hitting streak.
Yeah.
They say in hitting streaks, you put your clothes on the same way, eat the
Right.
same meal.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Sports heads would know.
Put that left leg into the pants before
Exactly.
the right leg.
Or both at the same time. But yeah, so there's a couple of people. Not that I know Woody or Tom Wolfe, but I do know Roger Kahn, and one of the great people. And he took me under his wing for about a year, and I did some research for him, and I really learned the art of research. And I learned also how much I enjoyed telling stories of things that actually happened as well. Yeah.
So I want to just like take a little side trip here, and we'll go back to talking about the book in a little bit. But when I first met you, I mean, I had never read anything you'd written until just before that. I had read a piece that you wrote about our mutual friend Dan Byrne, and then I read, because I found it there on your website, something you had written about the 50th anniversary of the Beatles being on Ed Sullivan,
Right, for the Huffington Post.
and I was floored. I mean, I have to say, I mean, I thought the piece you wrote on Dan was beautiful, but, you know, I mean, I still, to this day, I've said this before on the radio, I know if anybody's listening who heard it before, I apologize, but I still to this day can find that instantaneous kind of hysteria of Beatlemania in me when I remember what it was like watching the Beatles on Ed Sullivan for the first time, and I actually had the experience of, you know, I was like 9 or 10, whatever I was, being like, ah! And I kissed my TV, and my little brother, who's 2.5 years younger than me, looked at me and said, ugh, that is so disgusting. And I just remember that feeling of being so excited about the Beatles and being, you know, and it was the first time that I sort of veered off from the music that we had in our house, which was great music. I mean, I grew up on folk music. I grew up on Pete and Woody, and I grew up on Broadway music. And then, you know, my New York Jewish father had a real thing for what was really then was called, like, it wasn't really called gospel. It was more like the Mahalia Jackson version, you know, of old Negro spirituals. That's what it was called back then,
right.
You know. And that was the music I knew. And then the Beatles happened. And it was like, oh my God. And also I was going to camp and learning Bob Dylan songs and other things in camp, but that all sort of fit in the folk world. Right. You know, at that point it still fit in the folk world. But the Beatles did something that nobody ever could have imagined could happen, which in terms of the cultural effect and how many, you know, heads turned and how many, you know, I mean, everything from the Devil's music on down to right. What was going on. But I felt like when I read your piece about the Beatles and sort of in that context of our culture and where we came from and where we are and what that significance of the Beatles really, you know, not just the music, but it's the cultural phenomenon. And I was so blown away by that. And I know that, you know, you get to, I mean, you haven't yet written anything, right? Like you haven't yet interviewed Paul McCartney or Ringo Starr yet.
I've never met a Beatle, no.
Not yet, but not yet, yeah. But
there's only 2 of them left.
People. There's only 2 of them left. I know,
right.
But I feel like you know.
I do have 2 degrees of separation, though.
Oh, you do? So okay. I always do of everything.
First of all, I want to thank you for saying that because that means more to me than anything you know because you come from just on that cusp of the early. I'm considered a boomer. I'm 51 now, so I'm considered a boomer, but I'm not. Unless you could have got high at Woodstock or, you know, marched in the rallies for civil rights. I was 2 in 1960. That wasn't even 2.
Right.
So
you don't remember them being on Ed Sullivan?
I don't.
Yeah.
So I wrote that based on my having read volumes on the Beatles and my own touchstones in my life. And I recently just wrote a piece about the 40th anniversary of Nixon resigning, which was August 8th.
Oh, I just saw something on the news about that the other night. That's right.
And that was sort of I was mentioning that was sort of my touchdown for because people always say, why are you so cynical? And I feel like I'm not cynical, I'm realistic, because I grew up in a period of not overt optimism, which the Beatles brought in, that 60s thing that came out of the Kennedy assassination. Right. My 2 introductions to politics, really, as a kid, was why is everyone, when I was a kid, everybody used to drive around Morris Park Avenue in the Bronx with their lights on November 22nd for the anniversary. because you got to figure I was really young, 67, 67. It was Kennedy was only dead for 5-6 years.
Right.
People would still put their lights on to drive during the day for to commemorate.
Right.
So, and I would ask my parents and say it was for the president who got shot. And I remember I had this record album that celebrated the 69 moon landing. I remember that and how proud everyone felt about America and everything. And I remember that they had like the speech that Kennedy had given in 61 about we've got to get to the moon, you know. And I said, Mom, did this guy I'm listening to, did he get to see him go on the moon? And my mother said, sadly, no, someone killed him. And then here comes this early 70s where I moved away from the Bronx to New Jersey, and I had no friends. So I spent the entire summer of 73 watching the Watergate trials.
Oh, my God.
Because everyone else was watching it. And as you remember, we only had 5 stations then. And
it was consuming.
Right. Yeah. And so I found it fascinating that adults were getting in trouble the way I used to do in Catholic school. People were standing up there yelling at them, and do you know? And I was transfixed. And my memory of Nixon quitting is... So you have to figure where I came from, right? I mean, that's my kind of milieu. It's Kennedy being shot, and then here comes Nixon, being a criminal, basically, and thrown out of office. So now when people tell me, it's the worst ever, I tell them, no, you had to grow up when I was. So I try to bring in that part, writing about, try to look it through your eyes. So for you to tell me that, having been there and physically experienced that, is a real thrill for me as a writer. That's what you do when you write. You try to figure out what makes people tick. And not just the Beatles, but you getting the Beatles.
Yeah. And it's sort of like, when you're creating that perspective of speaking for somebody else, whether it be, in, an article you're writing or in a book you're writing, whatever, that somehow there has to be I don't know if this is even the right word, a compartmentalization of your own, like you have to be able to put only so much of yourself in, because if you put too much of yourself in, then it's just lost, right? Then you don't have your character anymore.
Yeah, it's solipsistic, as they call it.
What does that mean? Nobody ever said that word on my radio show. Could you say it again and define it, please?
I won't be able to do the Merriam-Webster's definition, but it's almost like you're becoming your own voice. It's everything is funneled through you. There's no objectivity,
right?
But also
we all are the center of our own universes,
exactly,
and it can get a little old.
Now, again, I'm gonna cite Hunter Thompson again because he's one of my great heroes, especially as a journalist. But he came up with the gonzo journalism concept, which is infusing yourself into the story. Now he took it to the nth degree, where he becomes the story. But he often said, and I agree with this. And he said it as a very young man because he wrote in his journal when the day Kennedy was shot, speaking of that again, about how, and that's when he came up with the term fear and loathing. He actually wrote it when he was a young man. That
fear and loathing in Las Vegas.
There is no way that you can be objective about anything, really. I mean, you try to do that as a journalist. I just reading it last night about how this thing is going on in Ferguson, in Missouri.
God.
And they're jailing now. They're throwing journalists in jail there,
right?
Because it's
though as of last night, I did see on the news last night, it's
peaceful now.
It's peaceful now. They've gotten rid of the tanks and the assault weapons.
Right. It seems like they burned up just about everything there is. I don't mean to chuckle, but you know what I mean.
God,
it got out of hand.
Yeah,
but
big time.
But as a journalist covering that, you can be objective, because I interviewed people who covered the civil rights period, where you had to write about these terrible things that were being done to African American, and not even, just the bombing of churches, and you had to report on that. But how do you ever report on that without feeling any empathy or sympathy? Once you start saying words like empathy and sympathy, you stop becoming objective, right? But yet you.
But then you be human.
But then you're human. You're supposed to be inhuman. That's the whole point of being in the media.
Is that really true?
I am the
to be so like I don't know, like distanced.
You're supposed to
to really tell a story.
Yes, you're supposed. That's one of the first things I learned in journalism school. But you don't. But it's impossible. Let me tell you, it's impossible. One time, and Jeannie reminded me before I got on. No cursing on the air.
That's right.
But I was at a book signing in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I'll never forget this. I've quoted it quite a bit in my column. Someone asked me, "I really love your work, but why do you have to use the F word?" And I said, "Well, I don't use it all the time." Yeah. I said, "You try writing about this stuff and not use the F word. You try covering some of this."
Yeah.
And of course, I was making a joke, but the idea is to not get too involved. But which is, again, a huge part of my book. I'm bringing it back to the book again, but I'm just saying in the book, I'm writing about the art of being a freelancer, trying to find that one
The best story. The
elusive story that will change your life. Right. I remember covering, I was telling you before, I covered...
The masterpiece. I did notice in your book, you got like a $12 vocabulary. Like you got some really fancy words. Like you fling these words around. You have like words, like big words. Like you could probably read things that of several words. When you said what's the word?
Solipsistic.
Solipsistic or solipsism that no one had ever said on my radio show. You've probably got at least 20 words in that book that nobody's ever said on my radio show, if not more.
I'll take that.
Do you love words? What's the deal with words? Talk about words.
Love them. There's
and you like them big? You like big words? Does size really matter with words? Ooh.
I will. That's exactly. That guy's got some big words. I will quote the great Mark Twain, who said the difference between the right word and the wrong word is the difference between lightning bug and lightning, which is everything in writing. There are certain words that are funny and certain words that are not funny. I can't think of them specifically, but I will go over, and I think there's a lot of humor in this book. You tell me if you laughed out loud.
Yes.
But that I try to find the right word to describe an emotion that is usually not considered funny, like someone being very bummed out or someone stubbing their toe or something. And so searching for the right word could take days. That is very true. Could take days. And I'm not even there are great writers who will tell you that. People who really spend painstaking hours trying to come up with the right words.
Do you use a dictionary or a thesaurus?
No. I will, like right now I'm working on this book and it's like 220,000 words. And the reason why I know this is I just sent it to the publisher. They wanted to know a word count. But I will go to the thesaurus because there's only so many ways you could describe a certain... Mm-hmm. If you're describing music or describing, I don't know, weather, you have to go and try different ways to describe whatever you're writing. But for something like fiction, I tend to just, the words come quickly. I think it just comes from working all the time, just constantly writing. Today, I stopped at a hotel about an hour before I met you, and I wrote. I try to do that in my stolen time. So I hope I didn't get too crazy with the words.
No, but I mean, that was one of the things that jumped out at me is that you have... what's the word? A command of a large vocabulary. You have a large vocabulary.
Right. I try not to Howard Cosell it in real life, though.
What do you mean?
Well, Cosell used to throw all these words out to just intimidate people.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not...
I more think of my, like just his voice and sort of...
Yes.
I never really listened to much of what he ever said, but I got the voice and my brother...
He was always going on about how truculent. You're being I don't try, but thank you. Now, you didn't tell me. You have to fess up.
Yeah.
What did you like about the book?
I loved your wacky characters. I mean, some of those characters just are like, what did they just do? What do you mean they left him outside the door? The characters would do really strange things, and it just made sense because that's who, and when you say to me that you were very much inspired by Lewis Carroll, it's like, okay, they were sort of Mad Hatter kind of characters.
Right.
They were like not your everyday kind of characters. I grew up in New York City, and one of the things about living in the city is you see people do things that you'd never see anywhere else.
Right.
Some guy standing at a bus stop and just breaking into a song and dance routine, that kind of thing.
Correct.
Or some woman on a corner, on a busy avenue changing her clothes. I mean, like, you see things
or breaking into song.
While she's changing her clothes.
From New York down to the Village, and we were walking down the street, and it could have been more perfect. You couldn't have planned this if I put her there. We're walking, and this opera singer is practicing. This young, beautiful woman is standing in the middle of, like, West 4th Street, singing her lungs out.
Yeah.
No one is stopping. And it's bouncing off the buildings. And they were from New Zealand. They'd never even been to America. They were shocked.
Oh, my gosh.
They took 400 pictures of squirrels. I kid you not.
They don't have squirrels in New Zealand?
In New Zealand. They were stunned by squirrels.
We have black squirrels around here, too, not just gray ones.
Oh, I'd like to see that.
Yeah,
you ever see a flying squirrel?
Not on purpose, no. I've heard of them. I've actually seen a chipmunk fly away from one of my...
You saw a flying...
No, I've seen a chipmunk fly away from flying from one of my cats.
Correct.
Actually.
Yeah.
But you know what? You just reminded me of something, and I kind of want to just bring it into the conversation because I feel very affected this week, as I think so many people do, by the suicide of Robin Williams. And as somebody who believes in play, as I do, and has, as best as I can, try and practice what I preach. And of course, I have many moments when I forget to be in a playful space inside of me too. But I think anybody looking from the outside would look at Robin Williams and say, and I even read things, on Facebook or whatever, he was not just the funniest man on the planet, but he was also the most playful. He was naturally playful.
That is true.
He was funny, but he was playful. And my mom told me a story the other day, which I don't ever remember hearing, which was she saw Robin Williams performing on the street while he was still a student at Juilliard. And he was in front of the 42nd Street Library, and there was a crowd. And she got pulled in to watching, and she said she kept trying to leave, and she couldn't leave because he was so hysterically funny. And he was doing sort of that classic kind of clown thing where you follow somebody walking down the street and you walk the way they walk,
Mm-hmm.
And she said people were just rolling on the ground. He was just so funny. And she said about a year or two later, she, a couple of years later, whatever, she saw him on TV and said, "Oh, that's the same guy I saw." And someone had identified him.
And how many hundreds of Robin Williams? Now I know he's a special, very talented cat. But going around New York, how many talented,
street theater,
talented people
performers,
playing music and juggling and street performers. And that's the beauty of it. It's a live. That's why I try to capture it in the book too.
Yes.
It's a live happening in New York all the time.
Yeah, there's stuff going on, right? There's always stuff going on.
And I see that whole spirit thing with you and Robin Williams. That's true. And I would say that the Von Karl character, I don't know if you remember Captain Von Karl, is kind of in that the constant talking quickly to get to certain, to get to the next point and then do this. And
then you lost the point. Anyway, so what's the matter?
Two of us together have kind of gotten to the ballpark of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that it was very sad news.
Yeah. And and I've read a lot of things and, about him, one of the most beautiful things I watched was a video of him with, I believe her name is Coco the gorilla, who has like 1,000 sign language words. And he had a thing where he met Coco the gorilla, and it was just this beautiful bonding, tickling experience. They were tickling each other, and it was like that sense that I think, anybody who ever saw him stand up there at Comic Relief or anything he ever did, that even in Mork and Mindy, the old Mork and Mindy, you could just feel his heart, that he was a really good-hearted person, and that he was so unhappy, and yet he brought so much joy to the world is a really, it's a tough thing to understand.
It is. And the only thing I could say is that I was telling you earlier that I interviewed Adam Duritz this week from the Counting Crows, and he suffers from something called dissociative disorder. I think that's what it's called, dissociative disorder, right? And I don't know exactly what that is.
Multiple personalities.
Yeah, he says it's something like being almost in a hallucinatory state. For you're never quite there. He has trouble memories, like what memory. It's very odd. And he's a lit major from Cal Berkeley, and he can't even read now, which is a shame because he was very, he was very kind to me on my first book that I wrote. But anyway, I did this interview with him, and of course I had to ask him about Robin Williams, and he gave a great answer, and I would be butchering it, but basically, and it'll be on the Huffington Post like next week or something. But
good.
It was something to the effect where he said, sometimes it's not about being sad. Robin Williams probably had huge highs for years even.
Yeah.
It's just this thing where you see blue differently than other people see blue. You absorb information just differently, and after a while that becomes alienating. You can't explain that. And that's great for artists because he says, I have it too. We've all been there.
Right.
But after a while that weighs on you. And it goes to show you that he had a great run, Robin Williams, right? So he probably had this his whole life or some parts of it.
Sure.
But you get to a certain...
The insecurity.
Really. Yeah. And not really being able to connect. Because everybody said, and I would do it too, he had beautiful children, obviously multi-millionaire, famous people. Everyone loved him. People knew him worldwide. It's meaningless if you can't explain blue the way you see blue. I thought when he said that to me, it sort of hit it. He used a color, but there are other ways. So I don't even know if that's a good explanation. I'm sure I'm butchering his quote. But
well, yeah. I mean, and he's somebody, I think Adam Duritz has an incredibly unique voice. Like, there's something so compelling to me about his voice.
Right.
Like, I just love it, and thinking of that song, like Round Here, that it's like he cries it, he sings it, he's just beautiful.
Sure.
And yet the perspective he's singing from is his own experience.
Right. And think about that first. That's why I put in the piece. The first song they ever put out round here was a song that talks about somebody not being able to connect.
Right.
Using this woman, standing on a car in a parking lot trying to explain esoteric things to him, and he's spitting it back to you in song or in poem, because I see him sort of like a poet, the way we both, I'm sure, see our friend Dan, is somebody who can really put forth. I mean, that's how Dan and I really connected at first, was through the words. You said I love words. I helped him with his first published novel, Quitting Science, and he was sending me chapters, and they were just amazing. They were Vonnegut-esque. They were just funny and straightforward and hammering. He just wrote a series of short stories about a detective that's basically him, the musician detective. Yeah. So I could see that's what I like.
1,000 crappy songs.
Yes. I like somebody who grasps that and can express it in a literal sense. Because it's hard for me to see a painting and get that feeling, or sometimes a film will do that for me. I'm not as visual as my wife. My wife can see things in colors and stream. Me, I like to be able to connect with the words. And I don't know how we got on this tangent. But
but I think that's great, because we all have different ways that we input and output information. I'm basically kinesthetic, I'm a movement kind of girl,
What's that? Kinesthetic, you said? I've never heard that one.
Yeah, and it's people are more visual, people are more auditory, people are more, whatever. Right. And we all do a little bit of everything, but it's like, for me, like when I'm hearing music that moves me, it moves my body. I can't sit still.
Sure.
I mean, I have to move with it. That's how I know I'm alive.
Right.
And it's not even now I'm going to move my body. It's like my body moves in response. But I think when you're talking about words, they can be written, they can be heard, they can be imagined. I mean, words can go. They can come at you from lots of different places.
Right, sure.
I
did want to say.
Yeah.
I was going to say really quick, I have 1 degree of separation from John Lennon.
Oh, yeah, how?
Well, actually, a couple of people. But
I have
my favorite story is this guy, Corky Stasiak, who was an assistant engineer on many, many great records, including Born to Run. And
Ooh.
Ooh,
can I touch you?
He was an assistant engineer on Walls and Bridges. Okay. Now, the famous story of Walls and Bridges is that Elton John sang that duet, Whatever Gets You Through the Night, which was the #1 hit for John Lennon. Then he played The Garden with Elton, then he got back together with Yoko. Well, it turns out he was already kind of hanging with Yoko at that point when he was recording, when he came back to New York. She was still living at the
Dakota?
Dakota, thank you. And so apparently the story goes that he was supposed to sing that duet with McCartney. He was out in L.A. hanging with McCartney and a bunch of people playing.
Wait, John Lennon was supposed to sing
John Lennon. So he asked him if he wanted to sing on a song. So McCartney called him up and said, I'm happy to be in the city. I'm working on this song. Sing duet on this. Just sing harmonies with me. It'll be great. It'll be the Beatles back together. So McCartney said, okay. Stasiak said that Lennon was so nervous. He was so excited and nervous, like a little kid. He didn't even want to leave the studio. Went home the next day. Came back. I think McCartney said he'd be there at 9 p.m., 9:30, 10 o'clock, 10:15. No Paul. So Yoko comes to pick up John, and he says, well, let's go to dinner. We'll come back. Maybe Paul will come. So they go to dinner.
This is before anybody had cell phones.
Yeah. 15 minutes. I know. That's the tragedy. 15 minutes later, McCartney shows up. And the only guy in this building, in the record plant in New York, over on 8th Street in the Hell's Kitchen, is Corky Stasiak. There's like the security guard and Stasiak. Here comes McCartney. Where's John? Oh, we waited, blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry, I'm late. He said he's with Yoko. He said he could see Paul's face kind of get a little sad. Because I think one of the reasons why they connected was Yoko and John were estranged, and there was that whole weird Yoko-Paul. They were both very close to John, and they were always battling for his affections and attention. And Paul said, I'll tell you what, I'll come back at midnight or something. And he never came back.
Aww.
And then Lennon came back. He was so crestfallen, Corky said, that he said, call up Elton, because Elton had said, I'll do something with you.
Right.
And, yeah.
Whatever gets you through the night.
Yeah. So there's a little something for you.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's thank you, Corky Stasiak, who lives in Long Island by way of Puerto Rico, and one of the great guys. And he worked on The Clash, Alice Cooper.
Okay.
Many, many great records. The most famous one, though, is besides Walls and Bridges, is Born to Run, which took 2 years to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
So do you have any Bruce connections being in New Jersey?
I met Bruce Springsteen once.
Can I touch you now?
Yes.
Ooh,
bang! Yes, I shook his hand. It's in my first book, Deep Tank Jersey, which is a book about the Jersey Shore rock scene.
Oh, okay, right.
But it's about cover bands, bands that make tons of money. Still to this day, it was more avid in the late 80s. Mid-90s, it was more ubiquitous. Now it's...
Ubiquitous. Good word.
Everywhere. Yeah, it was everywhere.
$12 word, James.
It was peripatetic. So yeah.
Wait, what does peripatetic mean?
It's the same thing as
it's ubiquitous. Ever present everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. So.
You know, Van Morrison could have said that in his song. He could have, instead of saying it, and it's ever present everywhere.
Yes,
he could have just said it's peripatetic.
But it didn't have the right syllables. First thing I'll tell you about that. So yeah, this was post River, so he had this kind of sheen on him. This is before he became like the super.
Right.
And,
before Born to Run.
And I was not a fan of Bruce Springsteen because I grew up in Freehold Township and he was Freehold, and every sub shop, every garage muffler joint had a picture of Bruce with the owner. It was it was in your face all the time, and I was not a fan. But I loved that he played these songs, and I loved the rockabilly stuff he was doing, and so I just kind of, why wouldn't I? I walked up and I saw in a circle of people around him, and he started talking about this record he was making on a cassette in his apartment. And he's writing these songs. It's just him.
Oh my God!
He was working on Nebraska.
I just got chills. And he was telling you about that.
And Chuck Plotkin,
yes,
who basically produced that record, is a good friend of Dan's and
has produced 2 of his albums.
Yes, and Chuck Plotkin, along with you with your Beatle thing, gave me one of the great compliments. He called me out of the. You know how when people call you and their number's blocked, you're thinking, "Oh God, what's this?" Probably the IRS.
My doctor's office usually.
And it was Chuck Plotkin who read the piece I wrote about Dan's last long record,
Breathe.
The Drifter.
Drifter. Drifter.
And I wish I had a tape recorder. For 6 minutes, this deep-voiced legend who produced Dylan was telling me how it was the second best thing. He didn't tell me the best thing, though. I think it was something that somebody wrote about Springsteen that he'd ever read about music, and he called Dan and told him, you should appreciate that because, yeah.
So this was a piece you wrote when
Drifter came out.
When Drifter first came out.
And that's to Dan's credit because Dan gave me hours of time on the phone.
Yeah.
He would call me as he was working on the record. So I got ridiculous, because we're friends with him, I got ridiculous access to the process.
Right.
And as I told you earlier, there's nothing better for me is to learn how things are done, what makes people tick, and how art gets done. And Dan was giving me ground floor stuff. So I had stuff nobody had.
Yeah.
So I think that's what Chuck probably read into it. But I'll never forget that. I'll send you a link to that. You can find it. Just type in James Campion, Dan Byrne, Drifter. And
there you go. There you go. You think you got a song? You want to play a real song? And then we'll bring us up to the top of the hour.
I don't know how close you want me to be to this mic. I was singing the song about George before. A little close, I'm thinking.
You know what? We'll figure it out.
A song that I wrote or a
what do you want to play?
Anything it's your show.
Oh, you mean I can do anything I want?
You can have any request.
Okay, first I want to hear one of yours.
All right.
And we can use both mics. You want one for the guitar, one for you, or
I will just. Oh, you want to do it that way?
But they all see the mics jump. They're all.
So can I just? What's this? Tell me what this sounds like. Let's do a test.
Okay, go plunk. That's all right.
Hello, people in Radio Land. How's that?
That's not bad.
I'll play lower, so you can.
That's not bad. If you can move a little closer to the voice mic, that might help.
Sure.
But otherwise, I think that's good. Do you have room to move forward a little?
I think so.
Okay. It's so good to have you here. All right, now you're going to play a song.
This is the most fun I've had in a long time. It didn't involve alcohol or nudity or
we do
water.
Have this standing joke here at the radio station that programmers have been talking about for years. Is we could all be naked in here when we're on the air, and nobody would ever know.
The beauty
nobody would ever know.
And that's why I like to write, because I get to write nude. Who's gonna complain?
Not just in your slippers, right? All right. So, what are you gonna play for us, James? James Campion here, man of many talents, has got the guitar out.
Well, I haven't rehearsed anything, but I was thinking.
Time to go.
Take it easy. Well, I don't play all the time, though I do play for my wife's yoga classes. I was talking to Jeannie earlier at lunch about a piece I wrote 2 weeks ago, cover piece for the Aquarian on Sinead O'Connor. And Sinead is a sweetheart. And she's gone through a lot of problems. And she's been so public, too, about having been abused as a child. Right. And that's amazing to me. And even writing songs about suicide. And and even writing in I think the lyrics of the song is something like, I can't believe I'm singing this, but I have to do it. Is that she, and I think it's called 8 Good Reasons to Stay or something, and I asked her what the 8 good reasons are, and she said my child's eyes, my kid's eyes, which I thought were great because she has 4 kids. But Sinead has got a new record out called I'm Not Bossy, I'm the Boss. And great name. Is that a song title? It's not. It's just the title of the record. But she said that she writes about these characters, these women who are constantly searching for something, either for a man to give it to them, or society, or their hairdo, and they just need to look inside because it's there. You know, it's a general message, the Buddha, Jesus, whatever you want to say. There's always stop looking down the road.
Right. Pay attention to what's
going on in there. Yeah. So I wrote this song years ago called "Caroline is Lost in a Cereal Box," which I immediately thought of when I think of Sinead, and it's really just a stupid. Now, I haven't written songs in like 25 years, so you have to remember when I wrote these songs, I was like 18, 19, 20, 21, 22.
But I saw a picture of you were in like a rock band, right?
I was like 25 to 20. The last time I played
with your songs in the band?
My songs. The last time I played my songs publicly, except for when I just friends or small little things, was like 1989.
So this is like a debut, a re-debut.
Oh, it is. Except for like my
or re-debut.
The unlucky people who go to my wife's yoga classes when we do live stuff. So anyway, this is "Caroline is Lost in a Cereal Box." Now, if I sit here and sing, you could be the engineer now. You be Corky Stacey.
Yeah, this is me. I'm everything.
Okay, good.
We're community radio.
Do you have a tambourine here?
No, but I have a good sense of rhythm.
There you go. All she wanted was a diamond ring. She didn't get anything. All she wanted was a wedding gown. Didn't come around at all. Caroline is lost in a cereal box. She never read the ingredients. Made no sense now. She can't find her way out of here, and all the fears are realized. She's not surprised at all. There's a big word in this next verse. All she wanted was a trustworthy man. She got a sycophant. All she wanted was some excitement. She got life. She got life instead. Caroline is lost in a bowl of soup. She never learned to swim, so why'd she go in? All the noodles flow her way out of here, and all the dreams are realized. She's not surprised that she goes in just the same. I'm proud of her. She goes in just the same, yeah. She goes in just the same, just the same, just the same. Yeah, yeah. This is like the sing-along part now here. It's just a name. It's an old rock and roll thing you do. You just sing the name. And it goes like this. Carolina. One more. Carolina. Well, we'll do one more because she needs to sing along now. Carolina. Thank you, dear. That was beautiful.
I like that.
Thanks.
I like that. My mic wasn't on. There it is. Caroline's lost in her soup. She's lost in her cereal box. She's just lost. That was cool. That was cool. All right, we're gonna shift gears here a little bit, and we're gonna do my new segment that actually just started a couple of months ago, and the very first person to do this with me was Dan Byrne, and so I thought, in honor of you being here today, that I would replay that.
Yes.
And this was something that kind of got invented, in part to be able to grab a traveling musician or a busy musician who doesn't really have time to come into the studio or to do a whole big thing, but it's like, using my little iPhone and voice memo that I can record anybody anywhere. Like that was sort of the idea, that I could take it with me places and record. And I've done a few of these after shows at the Guthrie Center, and it's like, it's not that much to ask of somebody. It's just a few minutes of their time. So that's kind of my thing. And it's called One Question, One Song. And the way that it works, and I'm actually thinking maybe you and I should do it as part, but as separate than this, as separate from the radio show. Sure. That's not part of today.
This is the library.
But the way that it works is I get to ask one question, and they get to answer it, and then they get to play me one song. Okay. So it's one question, one song. So are you ready to take this little interlude here?
I am. Will I be able to hear this without headphones?
Yes, because I'm going to turn off my microphone to do it.
All right, I can't wait. Admiral Bernstein. One of my favorite people on the planet.
All right. So here we go. And one question, one song. One question, one song. Hey, this is a brand new experience here on In the Spirit of Play. I am just starting out very first time today with a brand new segment that is called One Question and One Song, from a traveling musician as they're cruising through the Berkshires with busy tour schedules, not a lot of time on their hands, but if I can grab them for one question and one song, this is the new way for me. So I'm delighted to say I've got Dan Byrne right here on location in Berkshire County in the beautiful outdoors, here for one question and one song. Hi, Dan.
Hello.
All right, so here it is. As an artist, as somebody who takes input from much of what happens in the world, the events of the world, the weather of the world, the relationships of the world, the earth and everything, that you get your input from all kinds of things. All kinds of things can inspire songs. How do you know when it's time to create something?
Well, I think it's usually if I have the space to create it. If I have the space to create it, then I more than likely will. And if I don't, then it's hard.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Is there an and to that?
Well, sometimes I suppose if there's something really pressing, then you gotta try to... I don't know. No, I don't think there's an and. I think it's more like if you have the space to do it, then you'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that Virginia Woolf book, A Room of Her Own. It's like, there's only, she said, haven't been a bunch of women novelists because they never had a room of their own. She was saying that's what you need. It's like,
thank you. You got a song now?
Sure.
This is the way this works.
Well, it ain't no use sit and wonder why, babe. Even you don't know by now. Then it ain't no use to sit and wonder why, babe. Don't matter anyhow. When the rooster crows at the break of dawn, look out your window, I'll be gone. You're the reason I'm traveling on, but don't think twice, it's alright. And it ain't no use in turning on your light, babe. And it ain't no use in turning on your light, babe. I'm on the dark side of the road. I'm thinking and I'm wondering and I'm walking down the road. I once loved a woman, a child, I'm told. Give her my heart, she wanted my soul. So don't think twice, it's alright.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck with your new segment. I hope question and a song, is that what that is?
A question and a
I
song.
hope that catches on. That sounds pretty good.
And starting it out with Don't Think Twice, I think is a good omen.
All right.
Thank you, Dan Byrne, for playing with me in my new way here on In the Spirit of Play.
All right, then.
All righty. Have a really good one. Thank you. One question, one song. All right, James, what do you think of One Question, One Song?
Well, of course, that was a beautiful version of Don't Think Twice, It's All Right by Bob Dylan. Yeah. And in a really interesting key. And I love the birds in the background chirping. It's fantastic.
And the squeaky chair.
I love it.
We were actually...
And I love your theme song.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Sung well. I have to say something, though.
Yes.
And you said we were talking while that was going on off the air, and about how Dan's ears are ringing because we're both friends of Dan, and that's how we got to meet, and we're here. And
he knows you're here today.
Right. So Dan knows...
If you really are listening, Dan Byrne.
I've been trying to get Bernstein to sing True Revolutionaries.
Oh, it's such a great song.
For the entire time I've known him.
Yeah.
Oh, well over a decade.
Yeah.
We even had a long discussion last year in New York about him rewriting it because there's a lot of references to like the 90s, late 90s.
Yeah.
It's really a story about the Y2K thing, like the end of the century kind of thing. But it's just a beautiful, great song, and I've quoted it about a half a dozen times.
True revolutionaries never burn buildings. It attracts too much attention.
Yes. Now, I'm going to just play one verse of this.
Yes.
So I am going to be the first person now in a decade to play this song. Just the first verse. Can I?
Yeah, of course.
Right, did you have anything else to say about your segment? Or did you want to ask me, maybe this could be the segment song?
No. Go.
Sure?
Yeah, go.
Look, Ma, they're going to fry Tim McVeigh. She said, that nice man from on the cover of the magazines? I said, yeah. But why do they want to do a thing like that? I said, because he killed all those people in Oklahoma City. She said, nonsense. People don't kill people. Car bombs kill people. I said, okay, maybe. But they got to do something with them. So she said, why don't they get Mike Tyson to bite off both his ears? And I said, true revolutionaries never bomb buildings. True revolutionaries never bomb buildings. It attracts too much attention. They never bomb buildings. It's only one verse.
It's a great song, isn't it?
It's a great.
He's got that verse about Pee Wee Herman in there. It's a little dated. It is a little dated.
It is, but I'll tell you,
yeah,
Conan O'Brien. I guess Conan's still on.
Well, Conan's still on.
But what about those great verses of, people sitting around funky little coffee shops? They don't sit around talking revolution and Greenwich Village and Paris, France, and I love that. I just love that song. Great song. We love Dan.
He's got a lot of great ones.
So do you have a question for me, though? Are you going to do your segment?
No, I don't want to do my segment but if we did it, we'd have to do it and record it so I could play it on another show.
Okay, we could do that.
We could do that after the show.
Sure.
Let's do that after the show. All right, when nobody else is listening but me.
You got it.
Okay. And we can do it on my voice memo. Yeah. All right. Enough of Dan Byrne. What are we gonna hear from?
All right.
Well,
I was gonna read something else, but since you said you love the characters, and I said
do love the characters.
Captain Von Karl is my favorite character. That was actually named after, is positioned after somebody real, and actually, he ends up at the end of the book. But you have to read the book. You have to come down to the library at 6:00 and get a copy of it. I'll sign it for you.
And why? The name of the book is Y. The
Correct.
letter Y, but sort of backwards, right? Or how do you?
It is. It's a symbol. It was created
like a mirror image of Y.
Correct. Except for just that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, a great graphic designer and a good friend of mine, Roberto Tatis, did it.
Great name.
He never even read the thing.
Oh, wow.
No, he's not a big avid reader. He likes films, and he was one of those visual guys,
Yeah.
And I just told him about the book for about 3 minutes, and he drew it on a napkin. It's a true story, and I let him do it. He did.
Wow.
It. And every time it appears in the book, it appears as the symbol.
Yeah.
So I mean, a lot of people have said to me, "How do we pronounce this thing?" It's screwing me up because reading goes on.
It's not
in your head.
WHY. It's the letter
Right,
Y.
Right. Exactly.
The symbol Y. And I just want to throw in,
Please.
before you read, and I don't know what part you're going to read here, but just there is sort of like a you mentioned like a down the rabbit hole kind of an energy that goes on, but there's also an energy that feels a lot like a roller coaster ride. There's like an amusement park, fun house, weirdness. There's a lot of like trick mirrors kind of, smoke and mirrors kind of thing. There is a lot of that in there too.
Right.
So I don't know where you're going to jump in, but I just thought I'd mention that part.
That is excellent, and that leads me to say that one of the lines that I'm known for, if I'm known for lines, from Deep Tank Jersey was, and people quote it back to me, which is nice. When is that I said one time about strange relationships, whether they be amorous or business or long-standing or whatever relationship you have. There's they always say the roller coaster relationship, and I said, well, roller coasters are a lot of fun. People love them. They pay money. They stand in line for hours. They go on.
Some people throw up.
They throw up. They get dizzy. They scream. They get excited. But nobody builds a roller coaster in their backyard.
Right.
Yeah, that's my line. Is no one builds a roller coaster in the backyard.
That's right.
But for freelancers and what I'm trying to depict in this book, it's the best way to go if you can get yourself into a story. So this is back to what we were talking about an hour ago in the beginning. The story is about a freelance journalist who happens to have the exact same name as you. Correct. and the other part of it, is that the fact that people know me and that knew that they were in the book or knew something about the book while it was being written, because I was writing about the book. I was writing about writing the book in my column.
Oh, okay.
The first
while you were in process of it.
Yeah, the first snippets. What I did was my column's about 1,000 to 1,200 words. So I was doing 1,000 to 1,200 words a week, and I said, well, I could do 1,000.
You could do that with one hand tied behind your back, standing on one foot. Yeah.
But 1,000, I just did a 2,500. The Sinead O'Connor piece I did in 30 hours, which is including the interview and the transcription. That's one of my records.
Wow.
Now, I didn't think I could do it. I didn't do that kind of writing since my 30s because it's a physical toll, Plus, I got to do other things. In my 30s, I didn't have a kid. I didn't have a wife. I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't have other jobs. But So I had these columns that came out that actually spoke about what was going on as I was writing the book. It's weird, I know. But I tend to like to do that, write about the process. But in a cryptic way. So people were asking me about it. So I figured I got to leave my own name in here because otherwise, who am I fooling?
All right. True confessions.
Indeed. Okay, this is the first time I meet Captain Von Carl.
James Campion, the star of the book and the star of my radio show today.
I can't follow that. Okay, I will read now. My first impression of Captain Von Carl was that he was clearly mad. Eyes jumping like a frightened amphibian and a mouth that never came to a complete stop. He came on like a tidal wave of hyperbole and bombast, boorish mutation of Joseph Goebbels and Larry Flint, a monster of angry witticisms and absurd sound bites. A journalist's dream. We've been waiting for you, Mr. Campion, he began, gaining sickening momentum with each ensuing sentence. Welcome to the rim of nowhere, the fringe of the fringe, the edge of the edge. Ah, you will find the view from the cliff may be perilous, but oh, so much fun. My pained expression of confusion seemed to fuel him. Not many people have stood where you are, seen what you've seen, he prattled on with relative coherence. But there is so much more to see, so much more experience. Baby steps, mere baby steps thus far, my new friend. I immediately tried to process the man. It was futile in the face of such battering ram expression, but I couldn't help it. Instinct took over. Von Carl may have been small in stature, but appeared taller beneath a sheath of pride reserved for Napoleon. Donning a long black ponytail, faded jeans, and a bulky turtleneck sweater that engulfed his torso completely, he appeared as an ill-humored mini-tank, a bizarre crossbreed of Alice Cooper and Henny Youngman, wrapped tightly inside a diminutive package of trembling lunacy. Some people might think our methods here at Y unconventional, but conventions are oh so limiting, so linear, so boring. He sang out that last word, prompting the otherwise frozen throng behind him, still standing in their places behind steel desks, dressed peculiarly, to sing along. Boring. And with that, Von Carl crossed his arms, lifted his head, and smiled. I couldn't help thinking there was a dark history in there somewhere, Beneath the manic vaudevillian-like palaver, the convulsive change in subject matter, and the encyclopedic hammering of obscure references, you could almost see the origin of it. One thing was evident from the outset. This was no kid from the mainstream marketing circus. This was a hardliner, a whirling dervish with sweaty palms and a penchant for jerking cat-like movements that stalked rather than approached. The advantage of not being anywhere is that you don't have to know where you are, where you've been, or where you're going. Von Karl continued, but it was only possible to make out certain portions of his rant, like consuming an Alexander Pope poem with its golden snippets appearing from out of the raging consciousness of words and phrases and punchlines. There was no way I could properly explain it, and a lesser chance I might extract a conventional quote in any journalistic sense. I needed an electronic device for that, and luckily I had one in my coat pocket, due in part to my aborted press conference assignment and the successful defense of my torn outer garment. "No guns could stop that kind of force," is the first audible statement on the tape. Do you realize the nervous system of a lab rat can out-endure a 370-pound NFL lineman? That is evolution in a nutshell. All brains, but no pure survival techniques. Throughout what he coined his presentation, quote-unquote, Von Karl was a blur of humanity. It was hypnotizing in its effect. Pacing beneath a confluence of several spotlights, he stared a hole right through me and continued unabated with almost 40 minutes of incomprehensible babble, accentuated by what can only be described as a ballet of aggressive hand gestures and strenuous calisthenics. I could not follow any of it, and yet I faintly grasped its meaning. Below are highlights of his monologue from hell. There are 2 types of people. No. 3 types. No. 4. And wait, there are definitely 2 or 3 types of people, and not one of them can be the other's type. Nothing worth knowing is best understood by learning when learning is the art of knowing in reverse. The best side of the worst side is the worst, but the worst side of the best side is primarily the right side. Not to say that it is right in the sense of right to left, but more in the realm of correct to wrong. The only sin, in our way of reasoning, is the sin of omission. Anything you do, you must do for doing's sake, as in the doing and the doer have done and always done. Do, do, do. The word do seemed to pertinent to his entire diatribe. He kept coming back to do. I noticed that each person scattered around the warehouse would jerk to attention when he said it. It was as if it were a signal, a Pavlovian command to jolt them back into the program, whatever the program might be. Do, do, do. I love Von Karl.
So there is this whole thing about nowhere. I wanted to ask you about that. There is kind of there's like that's the goal, is nowhere, right?
Right.
Or the destination,
right,
is nowhere.
If I can explain why, people ask me to explain it, I said, read the book, because I don't want to explain something. It's like explaining a joke, you know?
Yeah.
But the only thing I can explain is, for many years of my life, I know you must have come up across this. There are hundreds of people. I know my wife and I have collected a great gaggle. What's that Jim Morrison line about the people on a raft? Well, I've gathered on the raft. I don't know. The interesting people. Or the Kerouac line about the mad ones, you know, the ones that blow like Roman candles. Ooh, ah. We have collected this incredible group of people over our time, my wife and I, and me before her, but since we've been together, certainly, of artists, actors, playwrights,
creative
musicians, right, creative people, yourself, Dan, you know, and all of them have different levels of success or not success, or what they've ever expressed.
Right.
But I thought a lot of it seems almost circuitous. In other words, they're creating, they recreate, and you kind of go through that whole creation process, and it's not really a circle. What it is like a spiral.
Right.
And they come back around. And in Y, which is the whole backwards thing, or the welcome to nowhere you just mentioned, is this idea of having art that has no meaning, and the meaning is there's no meaning. Do you know what I mean?
It's very Zen in a way.
Yes.
It's very Zen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Excuse me, a wonderful woman, my neighbor and my attorney, Elizabeth Vengen, Esquire, told me that, wrote a beautiful thing in Amazon in one of the reviews. She's a Zen Buddhist, and she was like, this book is totally a Buddhist tenet. And I'm not a Buddhist, although I've read up on it. And this idea of, you know, expelling the ego and the welcome, you know, this idea of nowhere, this nowhere idea where you don't have to achieve anything, but by not achieving something, you achieve something. It reminds me of Sting quotes. Sting said years ago, "There's only so far you can rebel until you come back around and rebel on itself."
Right.
Like the snake that eats itself. What is that? Cerebus?
I don't know. Snake that eats its own. Eats its own tail. Yeah.
But so I guess nowhere is that. Welcome to nowhere. That's the first line of the book.
Welcome to nowhere.
Yeah. And in essence, you are nowhere. And I find that that's the beauty of see, since I don't write fiction, this is my first novel, and I joke all the time. This suffers from first novelitis. There's too many ideas in this book. And if you listen to me talking for the last 2 hours, you realize that there's way too many ideas in my head. So I tried to jam them all in here, figuring maybe this is it for me.
Right. Could be your only novel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think it is?
That's a good question. I'm halfway through. My last assistant was very mad at me because one of the jobs I gave her was to read a novel I had been working on. It's very Dickensian. It's large. It's got like many characters in it, the way Dickens would just jam characters in for 2 minutes. You're like, what happened to that guy? It didn't matter. It served the point.
Right.
And it's my doomed love novel. And the older I get, the less I care about doomed love. But it's a sweeping thing. And I got about 3/4 of the way through it. And I made her read it because she's a woman, and it's sort of my one chance at romantic text. And she's like, this is great. What happens to these people? I'm not done yet. So she's been begging me for years. She's not my assistant anymore, but she call every once in a while. I hear from her, and she'll tell me,
did you finish that book
yet? Yeah. What's the deal? Yeah, and I haven't. So, but I don't know if I will finish that. I don't think. I think that's beyond me, that kind of writing. This thing I could do standing on my head. This has been optioned, by the way, for a TV series.
Really?
Yeah. That's never going to happen.
James, why do you say that?
Well, because it was optioned for film in the early 2000s. It's the only reason I finished this. It was optioned by the Grossman Company in Los Angeles. At the time, they were in Chicago. Then they went out to L.A. and left me hanging. But they were... it was a 3-year option, and they were going to make a film. So
you were looking at this novel becoming a screenplay?
Yeah, see, I'm no good at screenplay. I was hired one time to write a screenplay, and it was awful. I'm awful at that. And some people like it.
Because of the dialogue?
A lot of dialogue. Although this thing is replete with dialogue.
I was going to say this has a lot of dialogue.
But that whole the stage.
Replete. Even to throw a word like replete into this everyday conversation. You are a word dude.
I love words.
All right, James. What am I going to read?
All right, you got to read something.
I'm going to read something.
All right, so I'm going to.
Do I have to censor, or will be good? It'll be good.
I don't think you have to censor this one.
Okay.
In this book, Midnight for Cinderella, which is a collection of my columns from 2000 to 2005. I stopped putting collections out.
Wait, what's the name of it again?
It's called Midnight for Cinderella.
Midnight for Cinderella. Okay. Yeah.
There's the painting on the cover was done by a really good friend of mine.
The purple and the red, that's what I see.
It's beautiful. It was actually Denise Mahalik is the artist.
Yeah.
Of a woman's hair on fire.
Oh, that's what it is.
And then Tony Anacaro, another artist friend of mine, a graphic artist, lit it on fire. And in the backyard. So that's an actual picture of a painting on fire.
Wow.
And it's a collection of my published work and essays from the early aughts. And I stopped putting collections out. I think I might do an ebook of essays next year.
Oh, yeah?
But I stopped putting collections out. They don't do as well. The first one I did, Fear No Art, did very well. And then I figured I'd do this one, but I hadn't done one for a while. So I had a lot of stuff, and as you can see, it's kind of thick. So I think it was just the thickness of it. But anyway, before each... The thickness really, really scared everyone away, I think. Before each section, it's broken down into sections, the book, instead of chronologically like I did Fear No Art. So each section, like the first section is philosophy, my columns on that, religion, survival, politics, the 2000 presidential campaign, which is very historic, remember that, 9/11, the 5-6 pieces I wrote right after 9/11, the fallout after 9/11, the war in Iraq, the 2004 election, and then pop culture and sports, and I have a section of tribute, a few about Ken Kesey when he died, Hunter Thompson.
Okay.
There's actually one on called Springtime for Bernstein.
And wait, oh really? Am I going to read that?
You want to read that one?
Am I allowed?
Well, you can, but it's long.
Okay. Well, we have about 10 minutes.
You want to go for it?
No, I want you to read. I want to read what you want me to read.
All right, here. I'll have you read one of the opening sections.
Okay, there we go.
And then you can, if you want. This is yours. I'm going to sign this to you.
Ooh.
And then next week, if you want to read a next show or one of the shows, if you
I can read stuff on the show. I read things sometimes.
And if you're laughing at something, you're reading something like on your way on a subway ride or something. I don't know.
We don't have subways here in the Berkshires.
If you happen to find yourself on a subway. All right, so this is the opening.
Ooh.
It's very short.
So I'm reading this page here.
Yeah.
Okay. and from Midnight for Cinderella. Very cool. All right. As far as philosophies go, I'm a great believer in Fletcherism, the practice of chewing food until it is reduced to a finely divided, liquefied mass, which was originally advocated by 19th century nutritionist Horace Fletcher.
Indeed.
Thomas Edison was a devout Fletcherist, becoming a vocal proponent of the principle by often speaking highly of its positive effects on the brain. I have found, without fail, that chewing one's food works on many levels. And while not only being practical, it also cuts down on the inconvenience of choking and can oft-times be pleasurable. There is really nothing that can shake my faith in Fletcherism, the most blissful and joyous of all isms. I love it.
Well done.
Chewing food. Hey, I've actually...
Well done. When you come to my house, you must read.
And I must chew. But there is a lot to be said for chewing. Just in terms of slowing down and that whole mindfulness thing and
Absolutely.
Really getting full nutrition. But I never knew it was called Fletcherism.
Apparently it was. I don't know how I came
How
up
did you
with
find that
Yeah,
guy?
it's a good question. I have no idea. I don't
Thomas
remember.
Edison.
Hey, want me to read something I wrote about my wife?
Sure. Does she want you to?
Everything goes in the column. I just wrote a piece for my wife and I's
God.
15th anniversary, and she read it in Dublin when we were there. And she's like, I can't believe you put this out.
All right. So what's the piece for your wife?
And I will quote, also, speaking of Ireland, I went to his house, Oscar Wilde, one
Oh,
of my
really?
faves, who said, and this is on my website. By the way, jamescampion.com, if you're interested in any of the crazy stuff you heard today, go there. All my books are on there. All free shipping if you order books from me, and I sign everything personally. And I will
that's
sign
nice.
tonight
That's
at the
nice.
reading at the...
Mason Library at 6
Mason
o'clock.
Library, yeah. So I will not be reading for midnight because this is your copy, but this is I'll make
I
this
could
quick.
lend it to you if you need me to.
Once I send it to you, though, it's your problem. Okay, I'll make this quick. I love my wife. I really love my wife. She is the coolest. You know when you were a kid and you wanted to hang with the coolest people? This is my wife. She is the coolest of people. I dig just watching her be cool. I watch her paint, and she's cool. I watch her work, and she's cool. I watch her sleep, and she's cool. I watch her watch me, and she's cool at that. Damn cool. That's my wife. I love her. I love her more than ice cream, sunsets, cheap wine, Joe Namath, and that line from the Ginsberg poem that goes, I'm going to be careful here, howled on their knees in the subway and were dragged off the roof, waving beep and manuscripts, who let themselves beep in the beep by the saintly motorcyclists and scream with joy. Even better, I love her more than that perfect moment right before you fall asleep. Semi-conscious relaxation. I love that moment. But not more than my wife. I really love her.
Aww.
Thank you.
I bet she loves hearing that.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever read that ever aloud.
Out loud? Really?
No.
So can I ask you a question? Because you said in the very beginning,
Yes.
and we had talked about that in our email previously, that you don't like reading your stuff.
I don't.
And here you are reading your stuff with a lot of animation, a lot of,
Thank you. This is a very
you
comfortable...
elucidate very well.
You're very... Well done. I'm just being solipsistic.
I'm just trying to keep up with you. Okay, you had a word that, oh man, it started with a P.
Peripatetic?
No, not that word.
Pusillanimous?
That means like a fighter.
Yes, no, it's pusillanimous is weak.
Pugilistic is a fighter.
Pugilistic. Yeah.
Pugilistic.
Pusillanimous, I think, is weakness.
Weakness?
Being weak.
Oh, I never heard that one. Okay. No, there was something that you read, and I went to go, oh, like what Padaver?
Oh, palaver.
Palaver. What does that mean? I've
It's
read
just like-
it, that word, and
it's
I
like
never know
junk.
what it means.
You know, it's kind of thing that's throwaway, treacle. Stuff that you don't really... Like when people talk a lot of time, like, I don't know, what's palaver? The kind of thing... When you listen to... You know what palaver is?
Yeah.
The end of car commercials when they would do the... Not entirely true what I just said to you right now. And they do that really... If you come into this dealership, we'll take all your money and your firstborn. And you're like, don't read the small print. What was that great Tom Waits line? The large print taketh
And
small print giveth away. Or giveth and taketh
away.
That's right, I'm sorry. I butchered it.
You better spell my name right if you're writing
Jeanne.
Oh, very good.
There you go.
I'm picky about that. All right, we got about another 10 minutes here with James Campion on the air. I can't believe how fast 2 hours is going. This is like ridiculous.
Well, by the way, I was going to say, I wanted to finish. The reason why I'm doing it is because you're very easy. This is a very comfortable, I might say, come on the show. If you write a book, if you sing a song, if you juggle, although that doesn't work on radio. I
had a mime on once.
Thank you very much. She's here all weekend. I was going to say that, did you really have a mime on the show?
Well, Roger the Jester, who's a local performer, a wonderful guy. Yeah, he's a mime.
That's like this Woody Allen stuttering ventriloquist.
Yeah.
Or the one-armed juggler. I was going to say that that it's just comfortable here, you know?
Oh, good.
It really is, and I knew it would be, and that's why I like. And any friend of Dan's, obviously, and we've only met twice, but it's been on for long periods. I mean, we're sitting at the show talking for hours about all things. So I knew that this would be. And then I said to somebody, I don't know what we're going to do for 2 hours, and they're like, you could talk for 2 hours. So
yeah, well, and it's really interesting because one of the things that. Is always fascinating to me about because I do believe that we are community radio here. We can do everything and anything about getting anybody out on the airwaves, giving a voice to whoever would like to have a voice. And my thing is always inviting people on who are following their creative path and doing what they do to light up the world and make it a more peaceful planet somehow in the process. And God knows we need more of that. So I'm always a fan of just making it comfortable for me to be here by having people on that I'm excited about what they're doing too.
You have guests all the time on the show?
About maybe 80% of the time I have guests. Every now and again I have a solo show where I just play music and dance my feet off in here. And I often play a lot more music. We were going to play some music and we're not even going to get to that today because I want you to play another song on the guitar.
Oh, you do? You have time for that?
Yeah. Is that okay?
Of course.
Okay.
It's your
Okay.
show.
I like your voice. I want to hear another song.
That's very nice of you. Do you want to? Should I play a song by someone else besides me or Dan or?
Do whatever you want to do. James Campion on the fly. On In the Spirit of Play.
Sorry. What was that? Was beautiful. Do it again. It's called Cue in the Record.
In the Spirit of Play. I turned my mic down. In the Spirit of Play here on WBCR LP. James Campion.
As I walk through troubled times, the spirit gets so downhearted sometimes. Ask myself, is all hope lost? Is there only pain and hatred and sanity? But each time I feel like this inside, just makes me wanna cry. Well, what's so funny about peace, love, and understanding? Say, what's so funny about peace, love, and understanding? As I walk through this wicked world, looking for a shine in the darkness, sanity. Ask myself, is all hope lost? Is there only pain and hatred and misery? But each time I feel like this inside, just makes me wanna cry. I want to know what's so funny about peace, love, and understanding. Yeah. What's so funny about peace, love, and understanding? So where are the strong? And who are the trusted? And where is the harmony, sweet harmony? 'Cause each time I think I've given up, there's just one thing I want to know. Say, what's so funny about peace, love, and understanding? Yeah. what's so funny about peace, loving, understanding? Yeah, yeah. Say, what's so funny about peace, loving, understanding? Yeah.
Is that a Warren Zevon song? Whose song is that?
Warren Zevon. You want to hear some Warren Zevon?
Wait, whose song is that?
That is a song Elvis Costello made.
Elvis
famous.
Costello. That's
That was
right.
written
That's
by,
right. He didn't write it?
No. The guy from the
That's right. Elvis Costello.
Nick Cave, Nick Cove, Nick
Cave?
Lowe.
Nick Lowe. Oh, Nick Lowe. Okay. Do you know that band that John Hyatt was in with Nick Lowe and a oh man, I have an album. It was a great
Rock Pile?
Nope. I'd have to dig it out. I don't know where that CD is. It made me think of that, but yeah. Okay, so that Elvis Costello. All right.
Another one of my favorites. Warren Zevon, which is a tribute to him in this book when he died. I had an interview set up with him when I found out he had inoperable lung cancer. Warren's one of my all-time favorite people as well.
Did you end up having the interview or no?
No, they had to cancel it. And I
remember seeing him on Letterman. It was like he only had like a few weeks left to live, and he came on Letterman and talked about it.
In fact, the only person I've ever seen more than Dan is Warren Zevon. I used to go see him all the time. In fact, my wife and I drove up in a snowstorm in Rochester in 2002 to see him, and he was standing right next to me at the bar. And now, of course, I regret it. I should have just tapped him on the shoulder and shook his hand.
Said hi,
I never like to bother people that way. I like to meet them professionally or not at all.
I like to bother them occasionally.
Yeah. I say, who was the guy that did? Was it Mike Myers that did the Cat in the Hat movie?
Oh, I don't know.
It bombed. It was
yeah.
And I saw him in the Village at El Caliente's or something on 7th. He was standing talking to somebody, and I literally say, Mike, I loved Cat in the Hat. I wasn't joking. I really thought I got a kick out of that. And he goes, bleep you. That was my Mike Myers moment. About that.
You have really great stories. You have stories. You have a lot of stories. No wonder you're a writer.
I try to collect them. And that's why I'm saying that's perfect. Perfect. You're a great host. See what you did there?
What did I do?
One of the first things you asked me is about what's real, what's not, what do you like to write, nonfiction, you have a fiction, why do you write? And that's it. I like to meet people, do stuff. And when you live in New York City or close to New York City, you're there all the time, you get to meet people. And I find the people in my life, you included, are more interesting than anything I could make up.
Ooh.
That is the truth. True story.
Oh.
I'm not just kissing up to the host.
All right, we got a couple minutes left. Let's do the contact stuff one more time. You're going to be at Mason Library in about an hour, right across the street on Main Street here in Great Barrington, doing a book signing and reading, and your James Campion's novel Why is the big hoo-ha there for the library thing. Do you have anything else coming up you want to tell people about? You mentioned the Adam Duritz interview, right? That's coming out. And your Sinead O'Connor interview, we should say, is available on your website also, right?
Yeah, and also Huffington Post reprinted it, and theAquarianWeekly.com. Yes, that was very insightful. I put up all my transcripts as well. If you go to my website, there's an archive page there.
Okay.
And I have transcripts of all, including Dan Byrne interviews that I've done, Patty Griffin, Lucinda Williams, Tori Amos.
Okay.
Tributes to James Brown. When Lou Reed died, I wrote a tribute for the paper. And, a bunch of other people there. That are really interesting cats, but never got a chance to interview Warren, who's, like I said, a great hero of mine.
Yeah, he was something. I didn't know his music well, but whatever I knew of his, I always just went, oh.
Yeah, I'm not actually.
There was always sort of like a, oh.
Yes, exactly. He's an guy.
Yeah,
this is actually a Warren Zevon song called "The Hula Hula Boys."
Except we only have about 43 seconds.
But should I take you out?
Yeah, and this is WBCR LP 97.7. Wait a minute, now I got lost. WBCR LP 97.7 FM, Great Barrington, Berkshire Community Radio, streaming online at berkshireradio.org.